Hi, I'm Anthony Barr.
I'm Michael Haughey.
Good to meet you. I'd like to ask you some questions in an interview about acting. Okay. I guess my first question for you would be, what important principles would you say are very important for an acting career? What techniques or skills do you really have to master?
It's the $64,000 question, this one, Anthony, because no one quite knows why somebody gets the bug to be an actor. Boy or girl, they just so want to do it. And it's irrepressible. And they usually find parents will try to dissuade them because they know it's such a precarious career. But if that urgency persists and they really do want to do it and are willing to risk their careers and their lives for it, they'll go ahead anyway, and they usually do. So it's an imperceptible gift which I assume has got to be there before you can then train and bring it out. If it isn't there to begin with, there's not much hope of success.
Okay. And so, if you do have that gift, what are some good steps for refining your craft and learning and getting better?
Well, my experience was first at, I suppose you'd say, high school, when I was in my teenage years, and one of the masters at school was very enthusiastic, an English master for drama, and put on several productions of some English classics. So we got quite a lot of experience in that area. And then he visited the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland, which is a big arts event in the summer, and lots of international companies come over from all over the world, theatre, ballet, opera, everything. But also the universities and the colleges send up small amateur groups to do new work or the classics or whatever. And I took part in 3 productions of Shakespeare while I was still at school in Edinburgh. So all these experiences kind of confirm to you, yes, I love doing this, I want to do it, but at the same time it produces a frustration because you know you want to do it, you can't. You kind of need help. So the next step is, in this country, in the UK, you go to a drama college, drama school as they're called, and that's kind of equivalent to a university course. You do high school till you're 18, and then afterwards, from 18 onwards, that's the age you go to university. Instead you go to a drama school, of which there are only about 4 or 5 major ones in London, and you study there for 2 or 3 years. And it's a drama school that you begin to work on aspects of acting such as your voice, your movement, and your imagination. All key tools to when you come to look at a script and begin to work on it. So at drama school, they help you to find a way of working. And then, of course, you're off into the profession trying to get your first job.
So, to paraphrase what you're saying, so you're saying that, you start out with building a framework, you immerse yourselves in the classics and you get familiar with theater and that, and then you start to perfect the learning techniques, and then it's out in the real world for experience and learning.
Yes. And I think most of our, best actors and actresses in both all over the world would say the same thing. That when you're given a script and you're offered a job, it's always as though you've never done anything before that. It's always horrifically shocking and worrying that you're able to find something that will work. So there's always, you never have the sense where you feel, oh, I can do that, that's easy, I've got that one.
Okay.
It's always a risk you put yourself at risk, really, in the rehearsal situation. Because, and everybody does, if they're good, you risk to each other, and out of that, hopefully, comes something really quite impressive and real in terms of building up a scene or bringing a text to life. That's really, you're trying to step into these words which some clever author has put together, and you're trying to give that particular character a reality, a life, to justify everything he says and thinks and does within the bounds of the play.
That's wonderful.
So I suppose that's what's acting is, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads me into my next question, which would be, how do you adapt your acting for different contexts, different actors, different scenes, different emotions? How do you prepare yourself in terms of, you know, calming those nerves and getting yourself focused and where you need to be? What skills or techniques have you developed for that?
Well, I think that is something that you're introduced to at drama school. You know, as I say, through work on the voice, the imagination, the body, there's a certain amount of preparation, physical and mental preparation you can do, you know, before a performance. And again, the best would say, if they're carrying a major Shakespearean role, a tragedy, say, if they're playing King Lear at night and they know it's looming at 7:30, 8 o'clock, during the day, I've heard them say they stay quiet. They don't do anything that's out of context with that. It's almost like a cloud begins to develop above you, a black, threatening cloud of that forthcoming performance you've got to give it in the evening. And you kind of attune to that during the day. So as you get nearer and nearer to 7:30, 8 o'clock, whenever the curtain goes up, you're kind of lining up mentally and getting yourself into a suitable mindset to have another go. And of course, you know, the old adage is true that you may rehearse a play for a month and you may find a performance, a character which works and the whole company are working together well, but every time you get to that curtain up, whichever performance it is, it's almost as though it's got to start new, fresh, as though you've never done it before. So my first line to you as a character is as though this is the first time I've ever said this line to you. And your reaction to me is like the first time you've ever responded. So every night it must be like that. It's not, I did that last night, so this and I'll do it tomorrow night. It's always fresh. It's always newly minted, newly created. At best, you know,
that kind of gives a joy to each performance.
Well, it ought to give a kind of a spontaneity, a life to the performance.
Right.
You know, and you know, some of the best actors and actresses, you know, are described as being slightly dangerous on stage. You never quite know what they're going to do, because they're going to react to the moment, to whatever the way a line is given to them that night, or whatever happens, within limits.
Right.
You know, the structure's got to be there, what you rehearsed, but that life, that, you know, nightly performance has got to be alive.
Could you talk a little bit about the give and take, or the rhythm that happens between the actors as you get into a piece of dialogue where you're going back and forth and you kind of connect voice-wise, you know? What's that like as an actor?
Well, the first thing to say about that is that the best dramatists, the best writers, not only write a dialogue, but they write a kind of mental context in which the dialogue takes place. Shakespeare is always a good example. If you've a big emotional scene to play in Shakespeare, you'll find that the lines are conducive to the fact that certain thoughts have taken place before the line is spoken. So you can tell he's conscious of the fact there's got to be a mental, you know, intellectual sort of text as well as the written text. And so the two go together. So in Chekhov, you know, wonderful, really, you know, intimate and personal family affairs. The words are so in line, in tune with what you're feeling. And if you're playing that scene well, what he's given you to say in the text is exactly what you want to say.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not easy, but it fits. It works. And if everybody feels that in the scene, you almost don't need to direct them.
Right.
It's a spontaneous thing. And that's terrific, if that's, you know. It's like you don't have to remember lines, because what you want to say is exactly what's been generated in you emotionally. So the lines just fall out because they exactly fit the bill in terms of what you do want to say, you know, to the other character or to yourself.
And that gives a great honest feel. It's like it's not. It becomes something where you can tell the actors are feeling it and they're giving an honest and powerful performance.
At best, I think that's when you say, that was a great performance. Somebody's, you think, my goodness, that touched me. Because you emphasize, with the actress or the actor, you feel the same and you can kind of identify with it. So you said that was a great performance. But the point I'd like to make actually about that is not so much the relationship between the two actors on the stage, but the relationship between the author and the cast. The author's script is key, absolutely key. If there's no script, the actors are helpless. The actors are totally dependent on the author to produce the script. And with all that's mental and intellectual scenario I talked about. So a good author is a joy to play. See? Because he understands.
Right.
And yeah.
Now moving into more of a technical application. What aspects of radio plays differ from the theater or the television or the film? What are the challenges and what are the benefits for you as an actor, do you think?
Of radio work,
right,
as opposed to the other media. I think it's got to be said that everyone is just wonderful in its own right. Film is film, theatre is theatre, radio is radio. But I think radio does have an extraordinarily strong advantage in, it's a cliche that they say, you imagine everything when you're listening to a radio. You're not shown it as on a film or on a set in a theatre. Your imagination is at work as the words, the pure words of the text trigger the background of what you're listening to. So it's extremely efficient, is radio, in creating scenarios or scenes or setting your audience where you want them to be, because your descriptive powers and descriptive narrative powers are just going to create all those wonderful pictures in your audience's mind. And so it's a very generous media in terms of it's limitless.
So now, one of the challenges I think, and I was able to do a little bit of voice acting this morning, one of the things was, so you have to communicate with your voice and you can't rely on facial expression at all. It's, you've got to create the scenes with your voice. So what are the challenges for you as, what emotions can be challenging, or, how do you convey, what's going on in a believable but effective way?
I think you've put your finger on an extremely important point in terms of radio work. It's a particular skill. It's a particular gift, I think. There's something quite mysterious about the fact that two actors, two microphones, two speakers, same text, actor number one reads the text, you listen to it through the speaker in the studio next door. Actor number two reads the same text, you listen to it in the studio next door. In one, somehow, there's a life, and it's a credibility. In the other, doesn't somehow. So they begin to talk about things like microphone personality. I don't know what that is, but it's real. Some people's voices, they do carry, they do work through a microphone out a speaker, you see, and others don't. So it's a gift. And you do find that with experienced, very experienced radio actors, quite often it's mainly what they do. And great characters are built up in serials and soaps on the radio. And it's a great shock to a listening public to actually see a photograph of the actor for the first time. Because they've imagined somebody totally different. You see, but the character has come out in terms of his voice and triggered their imagination.